Well, welcome everybody. It is April 30th, 2020, in the middle of, or the end of, or still the beginning of the pandemic. I'm not sure, but it is the context in which we find ourselves, making this inquiry about life purpose. So it's a particularly poignant moment, in my opinion. So I think what would be nice before we get into the sort of meat and potatoes or tofu and potatoes of this introductory, seminar to discovering purpose is just to do a very brief meditation, because in a moment I'm going to talk about 3 worlds of awakening: to wake up, grow up, and show up. So the quick preview is that by wake up, I mean wake up to what's referred to as enlightenment, classical or traditional enlightenment, often associated with the Buddha or sages of the present and the past. There's growing up into what I call an emotional adult, which I'll explain a little bit more. And then there's showing up with our gifts, with our mission, with our task, with our unique way of loving life. So the wake up part, we're going to just do a little, 3-minute practice. So, and thank you. I've already forgotten your name, but the person, I think it's Sarah maybe, who's continuing to do the unenviable job of clicking admit. And I just want to thank you, because I know that will be distracting during the meditation. All right. So if you'd like to, you can close your eyes. And if you can please check your mute button, because I can hear at least one person here. I'll just mute all again. And if it's in the flow for you, maybe just take 2 deep breaths. Breathing in. And out. The basic instruction is simply to rest, to settle, to allow yourself to be at ease. And you might notice that none of these is an activity or a practice. You can't work to be at ease. You can't work to rest. One simply invites an allowing to let go. A little like when you're in bed at night, you allow sleep. You allow yourself to fall into sleep. This is more like falling awake, falling into ease and rest. Everything is welcome in the totality of your being, in this great rest, this Maha rest. And if you're agitated, it's warmly welcome. If you're excited, warmly welcome. If you're thinking, I'm already bored, warmly welcome. Love leaves nothing out. And in this great, open, empty, spacious awareness that includes everything and excludes nothing, you might say there's a dimension of this open awareness which has no purpose. It's absolutely content to just be without any movement of any kind. It's one of the great paradoxes of human life. There is a whole world of us that is completely purposeless, just breathing, being, sitting, standing, lying down. No story, no cosmology, no myth, no purpose. Making space for the truth of that. And then finally, before we end the meditation, making space for the part of us that yearns, that desires, that wants to be an active demonstration of love. It wants to do something and make the world a better place. And these two coexist like yin and yang. Okay. So again, if you just got on, my name is Jonathan Gustin. I'm the founder of Purpose Guides Institute. We started, about 18 years ago. We were called Integral Awakening Center at the time. And I'm a psychotherapist, I'm a meditation teacher, and a purpose guide. And the very short definition of purpose work, I think, is said best by a theologian named Friedrich Buechner, who I quote all the time. And he said, find the place where your deepest gladness, your deep joy, and the world's hunger meets. Find the place where your deepest gladness and the world's hunger meets. What I take from that is that it's not just about what we enjoy. I really enjoyed jazz drumming in the day and being a ski racer. But it was nobody's greatest joy, maybe my parents, to watch me, play jazz drums and race. Yeah. And then, of course, on the other side, there's many needs in the world. My sister's a palliative care doctor, and I think she loves her work, and I would not want to do that. The blood and the guts and the dying endlessly and the pain management, that does not sound attractive to me. So that's definitely a need, but it wouldn't bring me joy. At least I don't think it would. So this definition of purpose is, it's a purpose beyond self. There was a shaman I studied with many, many years ago. And shamanism, there's a lot of talk about power and how to wield it. And one of the things he taught us is, if this training, succeeds, you will have power, and you may never use it for yourself. I was surprised. Never? Never. I was like, okay, that's extreme. But nonetheless, and he said, it has to be used for a purpose beyond self, or you will go, in the wrong direction. So that's what I mean by purpose. I'll talk about it a lot more, but I just wanted to give you a kind of just right off the bat. Oh, we still have people in the waiting room. Goodness. So, so the first topic I want to introduce, and then we'll take some questions. Then we'll go to a second topic, and we'll take some questions. And we have 75 minutes left, so let's dig in. Is at the top, I use this little short form, saying, which was "Wake up, grow up, show up." So waking up to classical enlightenment, growing up into an emotional adult, and showing up with our life's purpose as a demonstration of love, as a gift of service to life. And I regard this as the triple purpose of life. It's like, what's the purpose of life? Well, there are dimensions of purpose. There are flavors of purpose. So I sometimes think of it as like a piano keyboard, right? There's the middle range of our purpose. And that's, being an emotional adult. What's an emotional adult to me? It's someone who can give and receive love without any unnecessary impediment, which is difficult because we really want love. And then yet we sometimes defend against it. That takes a great deal of emotional maturity. And it's a work in progress. I don't feel like I've reached emotional adulthood. I'm getting closer. But there are moments when I'm like, oh, the other day someone was giving me high praise, a person I really respect. And I found myself sort of being a little defensive. It was lovely, but it was also hard. So, so emotional adulthood is, the realm of psychotherapy, as far as I'm concerned. When I'm a psychotherapist, I help people to go from a more unconscious state to more consciousness, bringing that which is in the shadow into the light, so that we can be an integrated, full functioning human being. That's quite a lot right there. And you don't need to do more than that. In fact, you don't need to do anything. There is great choice and freedom in being a human being. So it's not like one must do anything. It's, what are you called to? And you may not be actually called to any of these things. I mean, if you're on this call, you almost definitely are. But in general, for all humanity, I don't presume that everybody should wake up, grow up, and show up. That's not my philosophy. But it's possible. It's like living, I'll use this continent, it's like living in North America. You can travel to the area that we've named Canada, and you can travel to the area we've named Mexico. If you're in the United States, you can go north and you can go south. And this is beautiful. And it's good to have a map to know this is available. We study the life of the Buddha. We study living people like Adyashanti and go, oh, classical enlightenment is a possibility. Or if you know someone who you regard as an actual bona fide emotional adult, you go, wow, there's a living example of one. So there's a whole keyboard of life, and we tend to play just the middle 2 octaves, let's say, an octave above middle C and an octave below middle C. But there's so much more. And in a materialistic world, it's very unlikely that you were introduced by your spiritual tradition or your family or culture that you have, in fact, a soul level purpose. So, so that's the 3 worlds. And so when I'm acting as a psychotherapist, I'm attending to the middle world. When I'm acting as a meditation teacher, I'm attending to the upper world, classical enlightenment, transcendence. And when I'm being a purpose guide, I experience that as kind of a burrowing down into our depths, where we discover what is uniquely ours to give away. I don't have a science mind. My sister, the doctor, does. So I can't find the kind of science aptitude that would get me through medical school. I mean, I never tried. Maybe I could, but I don't think so. So, you find what is yours to give away. So I'm going to stop there and invite questions. And here's how that works. If you click participants, you'll see a box open up, and there's a little hand icon, and you can raise your hand. And if there's no questions, I'll just keep going. So we'll take a couple questions. Lynn from Texas and Margaret outside of Boston. Unmute, please.
Hi there. This is
Hi
Lynn
there.
from Texas. Can you hear me now?
Now I can hear you. Yeah.
Awesome. Thank you, Jonathan. I love your explanation, and I've been reading more by you, and I'm very excited to be a part of this call and whatever comes of this. But what's been the question in my mind has been, don't we need to grow up before we wake up? That's the question.
Yeah. Well, since you're asking me, I'll give my answer. No. No. There are advantages to having a solid, well matured and seasoned ego, strong enough to die to itself, and so that when one wakes up, you don't have an awakened being with unresolved personality warts all over the place. But
Okay.
I have seen with my own eyes people who, in my estimation, have access to the realms that we might call that are associated with sages, yet in their personal life making massive messes. So we can do a couple things from that. We can either say, if you're still making a mess, you can't possibly be enlightened. And that's a reasonable assumption. It's not the one that I conclude, but I get it, right? Like, an enlightened being isn't gonna, make a mess. But I'm not sure that that's true. I think it's possible. If you look at Ken Wilber, he talks about lines of development, which is really beautiful. And what he means is that you can have a high, you can be have a high level of ethical development. You can have a high level of spiritual development. You can have a high level of intellectual development. You can have a high level of aesthetic development, and on and on and on, relational development. And so he made the example, he said, you can have a Nazi doctor, high level of intellectual ability and very low ethics. So I would just proffer, or just offer to all of us here, the possibility that one can really deeply concentrate on the transcendent line of development and become at least intermittently awake, but not be well developed in the other areas.
So where does showing up fall into this? Because I guess I need to get away from thinking linearly. I hear you, and I want to think more of a spiral of where you might be in any one of these. So does showing up require growing up?
No, I don't think any of these require the other. You could be, I'm not, Albert Schweitzer just came into my mind, and I don't know that much about him. So no disparaging on Albert Schweitzer. So let's just say for this thought experiment, this isn't the real Albert Schweitzer, that he did not have a high level, a line of development on awakening and enlightenment. Let's just for a moment say that. And let's also say that he was so busy serving that there were a lot of personality warts that he didn't really kind of, sand down. Now, maybe he was an incredibly mature person. He probably was, but let's say he wasn't. So you can imagine a person on the front line being a massive demonstration of love, but still being an idiot in many ways. They just didn't get it together. So it is possible to show up beautifully in life, but not be an emotional adult and not be awakened.
Interesting.
Yeah. And, it's take it as a possibility. Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you.
Margaret, then Meg from Italy.
By comparison, I have a much more simple question. I've heard you speak before, and you've spoken about how the pandemic is like getting hijacked into a lower world. And I suspected you had some shaman training. So you mentioned a shaman here, and I'm wondering who you studied with, and could you say more about shamanism?
Yeah, I'm no expert in shamanism, so let me just say that. I've studied a bit, but we live in a world where there's this thing called a paper shaman, which is people go out for a week or 2 or 3, and then they think they're a shaman. So I am not. That said, one of the things I've learned from shamanism, but it's also in the Greek tradition, is this abduction to the underworld. Now, the difference between the underworld and upper world is when we awaken in the upper world, we awaken to the same unitive intimacy. We awaken as the oneness, if you will, or the undivided, the unbounded. But when we awaken sort of inside ourselves spiritually, we find that which is unique. And I don't mean what's unique at the level of personality, right? I like pistachio ice cream, you like chocolate or vanilla or whatever it is. Not that there is uniqueness at the level of personality. I look like this. I'm talking about at the soul level. And so there's 2 big ways to get to the underworld. One is through a crisis. And even that won't necessarily get you there. It'll bring you to the threshold. You get a cancer diagnosis, you're going to be on the threshold of the underworld. Whether you go through it or not, remains to be seen. Divorce, breakup, pandemics, and so forth. There's a lot of things that can bring a person, and you're kind of snatched and dragged really against your will. Who wants a cancer diagnosis? On the other hand, there's another possibility, is that you begin to feel welling up in you this question: what do I do with this one wild, precious life, as the poet Mary Oliver says? And instead of just going, yeah, well, I don't really know, or I think maybe I'll, serve the homeless because it sounds good. You actually take the inquiry inside, and you don't ask your ego because it doesn't know the answer. You don't ask enlightenment because this is a tricky one. It's almost like it transcends story. So asking the undivided what you should do doesn't necessarily work. It can sometimes. But if you ask soul has a mission. Soul is the place in you that wants to do something in the world to be love. And so you can actually come to that threshold and then move into that underworld journey. And that's the path of shamanism. That's part of the path of shamanism. In the old days, the elders, I'm told, would look at the young people, and when they realized those young people were ready, they would say, okay, it's time for your vision quest. And they'd send them out. And they were sent out with nothing. Occasionally they didn't come back. But when they came back, the idea is that they were to bring something that was uniquely theirs to make the tribe stronger and whole. It's beautiful. We do not do that in this society. We send our kids to college. I loved university. It was terrific. It was, it's an education, but it wasn't an initiation. It was an initiation into soul. Just maybe you went to a different university, but mine certainly wasn't that.
And who was the shaman that you studied with?
So that fellow, I studied with a few. The one I was quoting was Tom Brown Jr., and he was a disciple of Stalking Wolf. And Stalking Wolf was a Native American, and he was a disciple of Coyote Thunder. So there's a lineage that I don't claim to be a lineage holder, but I have benefited greatly from that lineage.
Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. One more, Meg from Italy.
Yeah, the third level, the showing up, is it something that can change over time, or are we supposed to remain stable in our mission?
That's a great question. So yes and yes. So let me explain. My experience with myself and experience with the people I work with is that there's something that remains stable and unchanging, and then the form changes. So in my case, I regard my giveaway, the process that I do over and over and over again, to be midwifing wholeness. When I was 20, so it's like 33 years ago, I was on a meditation retreat just by myself in the woods in Northern Ontario, Canada, for, I think it was just 3 weeks. And between meditations, I was contemplating, I was wondering what I was going to do with my life. I was very interested in transcendence and enlightenment, but what would I do? And so forth. And it came to me as an image, as a kind of a vision. And I saw sort of a picture of midwifing the wholeness of human beings. And I knew instantly what it meant, because it was me. It was my destiny. I knew it had nothing to do with catching babies. It used the word midwife, but that beautifully, but it wasn't that. And so I realized I needed to apprentice to that. There is no school of whole person midwifery. So I ended up going to graduate school to become a psychotherapist. I studied meditation, really all over the world. And of course, purpose guiding with many, many teachers. So it never changes. It's been absolutely consistent. Now, the forms in which it comes are very different. So I call that the delivery vehicle of your purpose. So if you order a pizza, it could come by truck, it could come by bicycle, it could come by car. The delivery vehicles are different. What they're delivering, the pizza pie, is the same. So in my case, when I'm doing psychotherapy or purpose guiding or meditation teaching, it's always the same inside of me. Now, outwardly, those three things look different. But for me, I know what I'm there to really do. So I would say that there's updates. There's whole person midwifery 1.0, 2.0, 3.0. But it's not like suddenly my soul level purpose deeply changes. It stays the same, but different things arise. Before I started Integral Awakening Center 18 years ago, I started Green Sangha, a spiritually engaged environmental activist organization. That was an expression of whole person midwifery. And I could explain how that is, but I don't want to get into the weeds. So if you know who you are at the level of soul, then what you do is an expression of that deep soul's purpose. And the expression can change, but there's something that stays constant, in my opinion.
Beautiful. Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. Yeah. I see there's some more questions, but I do want to move on. So I'm going to take the hands down, and you can always come back with those questions if they feel really important. So a little list of things I was going to share with you. Yeah. So there are forces working against soul discovery. So, I mean, some of the symptoms rather of loss of soul or of not embodying one's soul. So if you are in work, right, that is not your vocation, either small v or big V, work dissatisfaction is one. The feeling of drifting through life is another. When you feel like there's no anchor in your life. Overwhelm and clutter in some people's is an expression for some people of a loss of, you're pulling in things endlessly, but you can't pull in something that's like soul shaped unless you that's what you're going for. Relationship challenges, can also be a symptom. So I just briefly want to say what I mean by soul. And the first thing I want to say is that it's one of these beautiful words that defies an absolutely perfect description, and I love that. So I've been studying soul, and Jung and Sufism and all this for decades and decades, and I still don't know what soul is, and that's why I love the word. That said, I want to offer some arrows to what it means, at least to me. So to me, soul is not like a thing, like a noun. It's a little more like a verb. It's a way of seeing. It's a form of perception. So it's a way of perceiving that's based on imagination. It's based on sensation. It's based on symbols, symbolic thinking, imaginal thinking. The word thinking generally implies or points to the discursive intellectual mind. That's fine. But let's soften thinking and massage it so that it's softer. And we're like, there are other organs of perception. So you could think of soul as an organ of perception. The Sufis talk about this, that there's a whole world that we can experience. They called it oh my God, al I'm trying to remember how to pronounce it. Anyway, I translate it as the Imaginatrix. Corbin, French scholar and mystic, translated as the imaginal world. Alam al-Mithal. There. So there are worlds where we can use our physical senses, and there are worlds where we use our subtle senses. And if that seems sort of far out and crazy, just think, how do you know when someone's loving you? So you can say, well, I hear it because they said it, or I see it in their body. But you could be blind, right? And the person's not speaking, and you can feel it. How do you feel that? What organ of perception is taking that in? Are you tasting it? Are you smelling love? So you already have access to other subtle level senses. So soul as imagination. And I'm going to offer one more, and then we'll open it to questions. Soul as place. When you inhabit your niche or niche in the habitat of life, you're occupying a place that you were destined to be. So if you were a daffodil, you have no choice but to be a daffodil. You have no cerebral cortex. You don't have a self-reflective capacity. You don't see a possibility. You can't even think of the possibility of being a rose or a dandelion. And so you are just naturally yourself. Same thing with my cats. I've got 3 cats. Or they have me, as the case may be, to be honest. And they're naturally themselves. Now, they're sentient, but from what I can tell, they don't think about themselves. Maybe they do, but it doesn't seem so. They are just themselves. I can imagine being a cat, maybe inaccurately, but I don't think they're imagining being me. So it's an interesting thing that we have this self-reflective capacity, which means I can see these pictures of people I really love. Here's one, Jung. I can imagine, I wish I was a super genius like Jung. I can imagine it. And then I can feel bad. I'm not a super genius like Jung. Well, I wasn't meant to be Jung. I'm completely uneligible for Junghood. It's not possible. There's only one Jungian, and that's Jung. He said before he died, please don't make a whole thing out of me and call yourselves Jungians. And then they did. It's, what humans do. So place. By place, I mean, what is the place, the location, psycho-spiritually, that you are meant to occupy that's yours? For me, that's whole person midwifery. For Bill Plotkin, a colleague of mine, he wrote Soulcraft, just a beautiful book. His is the place of weaving cocoons of transformation. Whatever he does as a depth psychologist or vision quest guide or whatever else he's doing, that's what he really is. So no one assigns your life purpose, and there's no choice. If I was assigned my purpose to be a whole person midwife, it happened before birth, and I don't have a recollection of that. But it's like saying, who assigned, my penchant for jazz drums, skiing, and pistachio ice cream? I don't know. I don't even think about it. Who assigned it? I don't know. It's a discovery. So you discover what is true. You don't choose it. So here's a metaphor that I think is useful. You discovered at some point your sexual orientation. You didn't choose it. If I were to have chosen it, I would have chosen bisexuality. Why would I leave anyone out? Just don't X out half the population. But when I was a boy or tween, I discovered I was attracted to girls and then women. And it was quite obvious. It was strong. I was like, my God, I'm in grade 5, and that grade 6 girl is so beautiful. And it was arresting. It was a discovery. It was self-authenticating. There was no doubt. And so whether you're gay, bi, straight, something else, you know it. You discover it. There's no choice. And if I was like, well, this sucks. I want to choose something else. Nope. It doesn't work that way. And you don't actually feel gypped. Like when you discover who you're attracted to, it's a beautiful thing. It's a beautiful thing. So it's like that with soul. It's there already. It is who you are. You just have to bring it from a state of real but not known to real and known. Okay, so those are the 3 descriptions of soul that I wanted to share with you. I know I'm throwing a lot of information at you. It's a discursive, lecture heavy intro, but I wanted to introduce you to kind of this cosmology of purpose. So you don't need to memorize any of this. You just have to feel whether you or if this is alive for you or not. All right, so let's take a few questions. Anne from France. And then Stephen from Washington, then Rob Barker.
I've got a problem with you saying that it's, you have it from before birth. I kind of see karma as an ongoing process. We're living out what we planted in our past life, and we're forming our future now. So okay, either you say that soul is at a deeper level and it's beyond karma, in that case it's enlightenment. Otherwise, I don't quite see how it's going to function, because everything's moving all the time. You don't have anything. It's not moving or changing at all times, except, okay, the nature of enlightenment if you want. So this bothers me, and it also brings up the problem of free will.
Wow, we could have a good time, you and I. That's huge. Oh my God. I'd like to talk for like 10 minutes on that, but I'm not going to, because that's in some ways above my pay grade. I've been thinking about and reading about free will for quite some time. And in my case, this isn't me for anyone else, I've read a convincing argument for free will and a convincing argument for not free will. And so I would say I'm confused. So, take that before I say anything else. I use the word, it's just so. I just find that it is so that when I met my wife, that was there free will? No. For whatever reason, I didn't choose to love her. There was something about her.
No, but you can have a karmic connection with that person that's very strong.
Yeah, so you're bringing in karma. So that's a whole I love
okay,
that, but
let's call it conditioning.
Okay.
The acts that you've done, they condition your life.
Yeah.
What I did this morning, what I ate, is conditioning how I'm acting and reacting.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I do have a choice. And we know we have free will. The question of free will, I mean, you could discuss it for 300 years. I think one has to feel whether you've got it or not. And I think we all feel we do have free will. Indians don't. That's the problem.
Well, free will, so you have the freedom to turn away from your purpose, to turn away from your sexuality. You can be gay and living in a world that is hostile to homosexuality, and then choose to live as something you're not. So that's a freedom that we're granted, but it doesn't make you straight unless you literally try it out and you're like, oh yeah, I was mistaken. I love this. That generally doesn't happen. So we have freedom to pursue that which is so, our purpose, and freedom not to. But we don't have freedom to choose that purpose. That purpose, it's you. It's who you are. You discover what you are through what I would call soul inquiry. Does that help a little? Not so much. Okay, fair enough. You know, took my shot. I love the hard questions. They're really fun. And I don't want to, attempt or make what's the word, pressure on me or anyone that we come to a decision. So it's a good opening. Who is next? Anne and then Stephen. Anne from France and then Stephen. Oh, I'm sorry, Anne, we just talked. I'm looking at the wrong. Stephen and then Rob. My apologies.
Yes. Hi, Jonathan. Stefan, actually.
Stefan.
Yeah, that's fine. By the way, could you, some people are unmuted, so could you just hit the mute all and then I'll unmute myself again? Thank you. Good question, because I'll just quick heads up. So done a lot of soul exploration over the years. Did actually a vision quest last year with Animus Valley, which was wonderful. Yeah, Bill's a maestro. And I feel like I'm very soulful in a lot of the ways that I'm a composer, pianist, amongst other things, and took up some now sort of going back down an visual art road of the last year or so and loving that. So there's a lot of soulful activity that I do in my life, and yet I still feel like there's this, there's a hunger in me, Jonathan, to focus this so much more that I feel like that I'm engaged in that, if not all the time, most of the time, in a way that I don't feel like, when you're in a project and you're really loving it and it just feels like you're just right on track, like I'm composing, or you're doing maybe a purpose guiding session with somebody. That I love those moments, but it's like I dip in and out of them through my life, and it's like I feel slowly like I keep coming into this focus. So that's why I'm here. It's like, okay, this is pulling me in, but I'm the question. What's my question? My question is, I don't know. It feels like, is it possible that I don't even know that I'm living my life on purpose in a way? And this is sort of a really weird existential, self-referential question, if you will. But it's like, I really want to have an experience, I guess, that I really feel like I'm just tracking. I go, yep, I belong here. I'm doing what I'm really best called to give away. Mm-hmm. And I don't have a sense of that strongly. And I'm wondering,
Well, you're talking about the difference between living one's purpose unconsciously versus living it consciously. I do believe that there are some people who fall into their purpose, are loving it, but don't reflect on it as a purpose. They're going, oh, I'm just really enjoying this, whatever it is. They're not using the word purpose as a way of framing their experience. And that's fine. That can and probably does happen. For most of us, we would like to be conscious of it, because the word does mean something to us. Even if we're not interested in purpose discovery and purpose courses and all that, still, do we live in a purposeful universe? Do we live in an unpurposeful universe? Does my life have a purpose? Doesn't it? At some level, that's an important question. We may not spend much time on it, but we find it's important. So those who really feel lost and are not experiencing a lot of joy, there is definitely usually an interest in purpose. For those, and we want to be conscious of it. For those who are living life beautifully, there's still a desire to be aware and understand what it is that is shaping our life. Why am I happy? Why is this work joyful to me? And so then an understanding of the cosmology of purpose can be helpful, but most important is to be able to identify in clear language or imagery what it is that our purpose, what's the image that animates us? What's the image at the center or core of our being, right? So you talk Bill Plotkin, right? Cocoon weaver, me, whole person midwife. It's a generative image. No one else has to know about it. I don't put it on my business card, whole person midwife. That's way too California. Won't do it. But you know, but let's be honest. That's what I'm really interested in. I took a real chance. It was probably a dumb chance, but I did it when I was interviewing at 25 years old in graduate school. There were 7 people in this group interview, and each person had to say, why do you want to be a psychotherapist? And I said the truth. I said, I don't want to be a psychotherapist. I want to acquire the skill set of a clinician because I think it's going to be helpful for my purpose work in the world, which is, and then I explained it. Luckily, I went to a kind of an alternative university or graduate school, and they didn't laugh me out of there. So there's a big difference. I want to highlight it. I've said a lot of things, but take this one thing away. Your delivery vehicle and your purpose are not the same thing. I am not a psychotherapist. It is a delivery vehicle. Yes, I'm licensed by the state of California, and I've been working for 25 plus years as a clinician, but that's not what I am. That's a role. It's a role in which my soul's purpose can shine. And look, if you read the works of Freud, genius. If you read the works of Jung, genius. They're both psychiatrists. They're both analysts, but what they deliver is very different. So different. You know, and so you can feel it. You can't say one of them is like drenched in Jungness, whatever that means, and the other is drenched in Freudness, whatever that means. Your experience as their Analsan, you know, would be so different. You'd be like it would be a very different experience. So please don't think for a moment that your vocation with a small v is your purpose. I do not believe that. I do not believe that. You can find vocations with a small v that are a beautiful fit, almost like a perfect fit. That's terrific, but that's still not your purpose. Still not your purpose. So I want you to really take that seriously, because people often conflate soul level purpose and career as the same thing. Career counseling is its own specialization. I don't know much about it. I'm sure it's great, but that's not actually what I'm talking about. I'm talking about knowing who you are first, and then what career would be a good expression of that follows naturally, organically, and easily. Yeah. Thank you, Stephen.
Thank you.
Yeah. All right, one more. And then, who's next? Rob.
Hi, Jonathan. You hear me?
Yep.
Hi. I didn't have video because I kept cutting out. I might try it just so you can see me, and hopefully it'll stay.
Yeah,
Hi.
I can see you.
Great. Hopefully it doesn't cut out. It had kicked me off a few times. So you spoke about some of the kind of symptoms of not having your purpose. I think for myself, I've been searching many years. What's my purpose? Questioning in it. And interesting, doing things, going down the more spiritual yoga line and then more kind of emotional line. And it feels elusive. And so 2 questions. Why is it so elusive? Why are so many of us not, and I speak for myself and I judge elsewhere, not living on purpose? And is this kind of, what's my purpose, desire for it, getting in the way of it?
Yeah, beautiful question.
About that.
Okay. All right, why don't I'll answer that question, and then I want to spend 5 minutes sharing with you folks the Purpose Discovery Program that's starting in December. And then I want to talk about the elements of purpose and then do more questions. So, forces working against soul work and knowing your purpose. Why did the universe create a situation where Homo sapiens can conceive of a purpose? Like, I'm not asking you to believe there is one. I'm not asking you to believe anything I say. I don't know what that is. It's a guru or something. I want you to consider the possibility that there is soul level purpose in you, just as a thought experiment. And why does it, if that's the case, if there really is soul level purpose, why do so few people seem to have really ka-chunk, been like, right in that place, in that pocket? Well, I think for one thing, we live in a soul illiterate culture. Massively soul illiterate culture, not just a little, but massively so. My parents, the best they could come up with, and I was raised in a good family. It wasn't dysfunctional or anything, like that. I was lucky. The best they could come up with was, Jonathan, what do you want to be when you grow up? Which was a good question. What they meant actually is, what career do you want so you can support yourself? And that's an important question, as it turns out, because the mortgage isn't paying itself, and neither is the grocery bills. So yes, good question. And they got that from their parents and their parents' parents, like the basic survival dance. There's a, what's this fellow's name? Harvey Swiftier. He said, there's the survival dance and there's the sacred dance. The survival dance, we all have to have one. Waiting tables, being a janitor, whatever it is, you've got to take care of that. Once that's taken care of at a minimum threshold, you can continue the survival dance and just upgrade it till you're Jeff Bezos. And then even if you're Jeff Bezos, you can still upgrade it. And, why stop at 100 billion? Go for 150 billion. And it came out a little more snarky than I meant it, but anyway, that can be its endless pursuit. If we don't live in a cosmology, a story of purpose, of a living universe with telos, with an evolutionary arc, then what's the purpose of life? Just, happiness. Happiness is great, but I'm more interested in joy. Happiness comes and it goes, it comes and it goes. I feel good, I don't. I feel good, I don't. It kind of keeps going. So I would submit to you that we live without a cosmology of purpose. We live without much cosmology at all. And this, from my study of history, I minored in history in college and continue to love it. There were cosmologies that held us, and those are falling apart. And that's okay. Cosmologies come and go too. For many modern and postmodern people, the Judeo-Christian cosmology is disintegrating. Not everyone. For some, they've updated it. For some, they stick with it in its old-fashioned way. And so we don't know about it. No one told my parents, and they didn't tell me. I had to stumble into it on my own. But I do see a change, because things are just going so quickly now. When I started in the 1980s studying and thinking and all this, there were no yoga studios, very few. The mindfulness boom was decades away. No one was talking about purpose. And when I started this Purpose Guides Institute just 18 years ago, it was not in vogue. It wasn't a fashion. And suddenly, it's like, whoa, people seem to be interested. I was like, well, wow. So it may be, and I'm not saying this is the case, but it may be that we're on the cusp of becoming more literate in that way. So that's one. Another is default purpose. My belief, my experience is that we are purpose-oriented people, no matter what. People say, well, I don't have a purpose, or I've transcended purpose. And I do not believe them. I just don't buy it. I was talking with one of my teachers, Adyashanti, who's a non-duality teacher, one of the best in my opinion. And he said, early in my work, I just didn't really think about it. And he says, now, just in the last few years, he goes, I was living purposely the whole time. I just didn't think of it or speak to it in that way. And so he's sort of been developing his understanding of non-duality and where purpose comes into that. So what do I mean by default purpose? If you don't discover your soul level purpose, nature abhors a vacuum, some purpose will come in. And what's the purpose that will come in? The one, generally speaking, that you get from the culture. Watch TV for just 10 minutes on YouTube, you'll know what that is. Success, fame, money, and understandably, I would prefer more money than less. I would prefer more success than less success. These can be wholesome things in moderation without addiction. But we all know it's never enough. And we read, People magazine or whatever the tabloid is, and we find out that the people who have all that fame, all that money, all that, everything, so much self-destruction. So default purpose is a real thing, and we can become quite slavish to it. How many people have I worked with? executives who come to me and go, I was success. I mean, there's other types of people I work with, but this is one group. They come, they say, one guy said, I'm earning $800,000. I had to keep my face sort of frozen because I was like, wow, that's what I wanted to say. Really? I had no idea people earn that much. And then he said, yeah, it's not working. And we talked about it. And I innocently asked him questions. Why not? You know, why isn't it? And he told me, default purpose doesn't really do it for most people. And if it does for a while, okay, then you do it for as long as you need to. So that's another one. A third one I'd say is competing commitments. So I'll use myself. So on the one hand, I've got whole person midwifery. I have a passion and a fire in my belly to do this work. On the other hand, there is the couch potato, the one that just likes to lie on my couch and watch YouTube videos, eat corn chips, have a dram of whiskey, and just not do much. So I call it my Homer Simpson nature, the Homer nature after the Simpsons character. And they both exist in me. And some people, we spend so much time on one voice that we don't let the other voices come up. And so one voice that can come up here, let's do something experiential. Let me ask you this question. Thought experiment. If I had a magic wand, and I don't, but let's say I do, and I will wave, all 179 of you, I will wave the wand and you will have perfect purpose awakening. You will be purpose enlightened in the next 30 seconds. But take this seriously. Do you have any fears, reservations, and concerns about saying yes? And let's say you absolutely trust me for whatever crazy reason. You're like, this guy really has it, and this is really going to work. So that's the thought experiment. Those are the parameters. So I'm going to put down the, how do I do that? The lower hand, lower hand, lower hand. Don't raise your hand for a second. So I want to hear in one sentence. Okay. So raise your hand if you would share in one sentence if you have a fear or a concern or a reservation about achieving or being awakened to purpose enlightenment now. Or maybe you don't. If you don't have any, then great. All right. Alex, Hannah, and Milos. Just one sentence. Alex?
Yes, I instantly feel pressure when I had to, how can you say? Yeah, I felt pressure. That's going to be my sense. Yeah.
Pressure. Well, I will ask one more question. Pressure, I mean, I know what pressure is, but it's a fear because the pressure, I'm not quite.
You know, like a pressure on all I have to achieve.
Okay, so that it's going to be like, it's going to be a lot of work. Is that the concern?
Will I be good enough?
Oh, will I be good enough? Will I be successful, or will I fail?
Right.
All right, now I get it. Got it. Okay, great. All right. Hannah, Milos?
I'd be afraid I'd have to quit my job, and then I'd worry I wouldn't be able to make a living.
Okay, afraid. I'm just writing this down. Afraid of quitting job, and then yeah, no money.
Right, not convinced that following my purpose would actually bring in the money.
Yep. No, that's fair. All right, Milos. Then Lily Dana. Lily Dana. Yeah, probably botching your name. I'm sorry. Milos?
Yeah, I would say I feel shame that I haven't done it already. Like that I've wasted my life up to this point.
Great. Thank you. Lily Dana from Santa Barbara.
Sorry. I agree with Milos, but before I heard him, my response was delight for support for my commitment. Thank you for the wand.
All right. All right. Nancy, Oswaldo, and Tony from New Zealand.
Did you call Nancy?
I did.
Oh, mine is that it's too late. I'm going to be 80 years.
Too late. Darn, too late. Got it. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, this is fair. Now, I don't actually agree with any of you, but that's totally all right. I wanted to know what your fears were. So these could be, yeah, it's too late. You know, when you're ineligible to discover your purpose at 80. And if you were eligible, you're really too old to do it. So, got it. It makes sense-ish. All right. Oswaldo and then Tony from New Zealand.
I think that I could feel very judgmental in terms of not believing that what I'm doing it's in alignment with my purpose. So like the feeling of not being good enough, still not knowing my purpose and not like what I'm doing is not enough.
Great, got it. Okay, Tony, then Jen from Canada. Tony from New Zealand, do you want to unmute yourself? Okay, we're going to go to Jen from Canada.
I guess trepidation around all that I would need to give up and fear around the hard work to be done.
What do you imagine you'd have to give up?
A fair amount of comforts. Some of that Homer Simpson stuff you were talking about.
So I'm just going to go for it here. What's one comfort you imagine you might have to relinquish as a result of awakening to your soul's purpose, if indeed such a thing existed?
Some of my privilege.
Privilege? What's one privilege you'd have to give up?
Some of the, probably some of the wealth that comes with not being involved in an equally distributed world economically.
Okay, good. Thank you. Lynn from Maine, then Rick from Spain, and then Aline from Belgium.
Okay, this is Lynn. Did I misunderstand? Did you just want to know the negative part of how we feel? Yeah, I'm wondering, is there any resistance? Like on one hand, it sounds great. Wow, you have a magic wand. You'll give me perfect enlightenment on a soul level. I'll take it. I'm just asking, is there any concern or fear? And remember, in this thought experiment, I'm completely trustworthy and the wand works and all that. Do you have any fears for your own life to become so suddenly purpose enlightened? Well, my answer is no. It'd be relief. Okay, great. Then great. I welcome that. Yep. Because I'm answering a question that was asked like 10 minutes ago, which is, if in fact everybody has a soul level purpose, why is it that it would seem so few people are totally awake to it? So I'm going to complete that circuit, but I think you can already see where I'm going. Rick from Spain. Oh, no, wait, where are we? Whoever I just said next. I lost track. My apologies.
I think it was me.
Thank you.
Yes. I can sense that fear and actually sweaty hands around, can I trust it? Can I trust whatever arises? And is it not going to be something mad, something crazy, something strange?
Okay, can I trust my purpose? And then what if it's bizarre?
Yes.
Or mad or strange? What if it's strange is the way you said it? What if my purpose is strange? What if my purpose is strange? You know, that's fair to the ego, right? if there's such a thing as soul level purpose, our egos are just regular personalities, everyday personalities. Is like, well, you know, what if it's a strange purpose? Will people laugh at me? All right. Did I call on anyone else? And then I think we'll come in for a landing on this part. Okay. I think I'll mute everyone for a moment. Okay. So let me just bring the hands down. There must be a bringing hands down everybody button. Is there? Well, I'll just have to do it by hand. Just give me 1 second here. Or maybe you could just lower your own hand. That would be quicker, wouldn't it? Okay. So thank you. So I'm just going to read some of these back. So the context of this little exercise, the spontaneous exercise, it was great, by the way. The question came is, well, so, you know, if this is for real, if it's indigenous and authentic to a human being to, in fact, have a soul level purpose, then why are so few people apparently not on fire with it? So, so here's a few ideas. What if my purpose is strange? What if I don't like it? And I think implied in the strange, maybe for you, but for others, is what if I'm laughed at? What if I come out with my purpose and I share it to a degree? What if someone, you know, like I say, whole person midwife, and what if some of you are like going, just, you know, snickering and going, oh my God, I bet this guy lives in California, right? So I don't want to experience that. I don't want to be made fun of. I don't want people to laugh at me any more than anybody else. So there's that risk. Fear of hard work. Well, of course, we can modulate the hard work, but yes, if you are on fire with your purpose, you will have a greater tendency to work with more, you know, intensity because you love it. So it's a two-edged thing, right? It's like if you really love guitar, you know, you are working hard and you're practicing a ton because it's your joy. You just totally enjoy it. You know, what's that guy? My second favorite saxophone player. Sonny Rollins. He said, I would go on vacation and if I didn't play for a few days, I would begin to get sick. I was trying to take a vacation from work. He was a well, he's still alive, a jazz saxophone player. And he said, I have to play. It's part of who I am. I'm like, wow. So yeah, the hard work question, you know, will I have to sacrifice leisure? So, you know, fair enough. Not being good enough. Well, so what if I discover my soul level purpose and I'm not good at it? That would be disappointing, to be granted a soul level purpose and to suck at it. I actually don't experience that ever to be the case. By definition, if it's your soul level purpose, it's your unique way of demonstrating love as an act of service to life. You will not be terrible at it. Now, you don't have to accept that, but to take it on as a possibility. It would be like saying, waking up and you end up being a daffodil and you're like, I'm going to suck at this. It's like, really? You know, I would say to the daffodil in my one-on-one session with it, I'm like, I don't think you can. It's like, yeah. Look at that one over there. It's yellower and it's bigger. And I'd be like, well, yeah, you know, and I'd say, you know, Jung is the super genius and I'm not. And so, yes, there will be the Jung of daffodils. I said, but are you sure you suck at it? Is that really, are you positive? And I'd do an inquiry process on that. Not believing it. Right. So skepticism, this is very important. We don't want to disable the skeptical voice. So when we awaken, we want to be skeptical, not completely cynical, but skeptical. Is this true? And so there are tests. One of them I said in the form of the Frederick Buechner quote. If you are living it and you are doing it, Is it your greatest joy? And is it meeting the world's deep hunger? If you're doing this, I wouldn't continue to do whole person midwifery. Let me admit this. If year after year after year, I sucked at it, I didn't enjoy myself, and the feedback was negative. People were like, don't want to work with you at all. I don't think you're good at it, and I'm not enjoying it, right? I mean, because that would be ridiculous. They'd just be ridiculous. We do want to be happy. And happiness is, joy is a natural inclination. It's an authentic inclination. All right, so there's so many here. So I'm going to stop there because I think the point has been made that one of the reasons why people aren't living their soul level purpose is frankly because there are concerns about doing so. There are deep, deep fears. If I find my purpose, will I have to lose my job? If I lose my job, will I be able to make money at my purpose right away? Well, maybe not. This is why I tell people who are successful in awakening to their soul level purpose, please do not quit your day job right away. Give yourself a bridge. Some people are like, oh my God, I'm ready. And I'm like, please, practicality is important too. I'm very practical. It takes time, generally speaking, to make your sacred dance, that's your soul level purpose, into your survival dance. I couldn't just hang up a shingle as a purpose guide and expect to pay the mortgage and buy the groceries. I mean, no one knows what purpose guiding is, so it's going to take a number of years. And I did. That's fine. I waited, and now I make my living doing it. So that was a very long answer to a very important question. So we have competing commitments. And the competing commitment is, on the one hand, I would like a life of deep meaning, of satisfaction, and making an impact in life. And on the other hand, I don't want to rock the boat. My life is halfway decent. I'm living a middle-class lifestyle. I enjoy the comforts, the security of the middle-class lifestyle, and I don't want to put that at risk. I hear you. Okay. So, so the last two things I want to share with you, a possible next step if you are inclined to go deeper into the inquiry of what is my purpose in the context of a community. And then I want to just talk about the elements. There's 8 elements of purpose. I won't go through them all, but I want to disambiguate, just to shine a light on the different facets, because it's not a singular thing. You can't just say my purpose is to love. Well, yes, at the highest level of vision, that's true. But then how? There's 1 million or 1 billion, 8 billion ways of loving. So, and then we'll end promptly at 12:30. And I'll stay after for anyone who has questions. So once a year, I convene a program called the Discover Your Purpose program. It goes from the first week in September to the last week in December. It's always on a Wednesday at 11:30 a.m. Pacific Date Time. And it goes for an hour and a half. So there's 12 meetings. And the reason for that is I've synthesized all that I've learned into 12, not all, I've synthesized much of what I've learned in 12 modules, just as a way of organizing things. It's not a sacred number. It could have been 16, it could have been less, but 12 feels about right. And so it's a process that I've been honing for 18 years to bring people through an arc of purpose discovery. And one of the big pieces is soul encounter technologies, or purpose discovery techniques. A purpose discovery technique is a method, a process by which the everyday personality and ego can have access to inner wisdom. I call it soul, but you could call it intuition. You could call it deeper knowing. You could call it spirit. You could call it Tao. I use the word soul. And so there are many, many, many. I have all these guided meditations. They're not soul encounters per se, but they bring you up to the threshold of the possibility of having an awakening to soul. There's the Entelechy meditation. There's the soul cave meditation. There's the 10 years process. There's ones that are borrowed from Jung, like Jungian journaling, active imagination, the day quest, and on and on. So there's a whole toolkit of meditations and spiritual practices which have helped people be successful in answering the question, what do I do with my one wild, precious life? As poet Mary Oliver put it. The other big component, there's lots of components actually, but the other big component is working with resistance, which we just actually talked about. It's actually a big part of the course because it's like, if it's already there, if it's right in front of our face, you can't actually take a step towards enlightenment, whether it's upper world classical enlightenment or lower world soul level enlightenment. How can you move to something that you already are? I can't move to the spare bedroom at 161 Myrna Avenue in Fairfax. That's exactly where I'm sitting. There's no instructions to get there. I'm here. And so there's resistance to seeing it. There's resistance to recognition. There's all the resistances that you guys pointed out to, right? What if I can't make money at it? What if I'm not good at it? What if I fail at finding it? What if I don't like it? What if people laugh at me? There's more, but those are some of the big ones. And one can kind of roughshod through those, but that's not my style. I know there are, people who do that. I think, and this is the therapist in me, that we work with the facets of our personality, of ourself, that have resistance skillfully. They deserve to be alive as much as anyone else. The one that wants security is an important voice. If that one would completely dissolved, maybe you wouldn't even, look both ways before crossing the street. It's important to acknowledge these voices of resistance and to work with them. So that's a part of the program. So again, it goes from the first week in September to the middle week in December. There's 12 large group meetings. And there's also 12 small group meetings. The big group has been the last 3 years, I think it was 35 3 years ago, 35 2 years ago, 45 1 year ago. And I don't know, it could be more or less in this next iteration. But there's also a small group, maybe half a dozen, who knows exactly the number, but somewhere around there, where you are matched with a mentor, someone who graduated top of the class in the purpose guiding training, who mentors that small group. And you're responsible to really track and be supportive with every other person in that small group and vice versa, as well as the mentor. The community aspect is really key. People sometimes say, can I do one-on-one work with you? And I go, if I have a spot, I can. And sometimes I have a spot, but I say, honestly, it's actually better to do it in community, because this is a thing that most people aren't engaged in. And to have a context, a crucible, a container where other people are interested and you can talk, and that sort of psycho-spiritual pressure, an opportunity that comes from working in a group is really key. It's the Sangha element. So I find it incredibly helpful for people to be in community when engaging in purpose discovery. So 12 large group meetings on Wednesday, 12 small group meetings at a time of your choosing. We, set up like 6 or 8 different, as many as we need, small groups at a time that works for you. A couple caveats. If you can't make the large group meetings, then you can't join the program. There's a lot of, spiritual programs online that you can kind of audit and be sort of casual about it if you wish. And that's totally okay. But this program has a more intensity. So I want to be upfront about that. Obviously, I want people to join my program. I wouldn't go through all this time and energy to make it. So I'm not trying to dissuade you from coming. But I do need you to know two things. You actually have to show up. And it takes about 10 hours a week, which means that between now and September, if you were to join, you need to, I think, I would suggest that you gently prune back on a few commitments. And it may be simply going to bed an hour early for the period of the fall. It may be cutting back on the amount of, whatever it is you do, YouTube, Facebook, whatever your thing is. Maybe socializing a little less, although in pandemic times that's already happening. So the program costs $1,400. There's a $200 price break for those who, after they go through the interview with me, within 3 days, if they decide it's a yes, there's a deposit of $250, and then the whole price of the program is down to $1,200. So that is the Purpose Discovery Program. The second thing is, starting in January, is the Purpose Guides training. I'm not going to say much about that because it actually starts with the first semester, the Purpose Discovery Program, for two reasons. If you want to be a Purpose Guide, one, you're going to want to know that the system that I teach works. You should audition it before wanting to be. If you want to be a Jungian analyst, you should probably do some, Jungian analysis to see if it actually is effective. So you take the first semester as a prospective Purpose Guide trainee, and then if you feel called by soul to become a Purpose Guide, if you liked what happened and you found it to be successful and helpful, then you can apply for semester 2 to be a a Purpose Guide trainee. We have a great guest faculty, truly outstanding. This year, it's always 6 people or more. This year, meaning 2020, Adyashanti, Joanna Macy, Meredith Little, David White, the poet, who else? Parker Palmer, Quaker, I would say Purpose Guide, it's not the word he would use, and some others. So you can look at the website and see, who's on our faculty. Because I don't want you to just learn the Jonathan Gustin method of purpose guiding. I want you to use it so that you can find your unique way of offering this service to people. So that's the Purpose Discovery Program. So I think what we're going to do is let people go if they need to, because we said we'd be done at 12:30. And if you'd like to stay, I'll stay on for 15 more minutes, take questions about anything, the programs or the cosmology of purpose that I laid out. And then also I want to just briefly share with you about the 8 dimensions of purpose. So if you need to go, thank you for your attention. It was delightful to, hang out with you all. So bye-bye to anyone who wants to drop off. And if you want to stay, we'll stay on for another 15. So I'll just give those folks a moment to drop off. Just give them a couple seconds. You're welcome. All right. So welcome to the after party. Let's go Yelena, Anna, and then Danielle.
Hi, Justin. I have the most amazing experience listening to you. And my left ovary started radiating light. And then what I heard is, I want to be home. That was the inner message. And then the hesitant part was, what if I don't have love for everyone? And it never occurred to me that I always thought of love as a permanent resource. So I need to explore that part of me that says that. So thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you. It was wonderful.
Yeah. I have a teacher, before she became famous, she's world famous now. Her name is Byron Katie. And she said if she had one wish, she said it would be that everybody realized, like she does, that we love everybody. I was like, say that again? And she's like, don't you know, Jonathan, everybody loves everybody. They just don't know it yet. I breathed that in, and I was like, I could feel the truth of that. I could also feel that I wasn't there. I wasn't in the place that she was. You know, I was like, oh, I love Hitler. I love our current president. I love, you know, Kim Jong-un. You know, she's at a higher pay grade, let's say. But yeah, as one opens up into soul more and more, you find actually you do love everyone. You don't like everybody and what they do, but the love is there. So thank you. Anna, then Daniela.
Hi. Hi.
Hi.
I'm just curious. I first heard that term "wake up, grow up, show up" from Ken Wilber, and I'm just wondering to what extent your Ken Wilber's teachings are integrated throughout this, and how Ken Wilber fits in with your genealogy or ancestry, since it sounds like
Sure.
you've got integral in your history and
I
title.
do.
And if you could tell me a little more about that, that'd be great.
Sure. So actually, someone asked, how do you raise your hand? You go to participants, you click on participants, and then a box will drop down, and then you can raise your hand. So yeah, I've been reading Ken Wilber since college, and I've read, I think, probably all his books. Anyway, I've read about 20. I own about 20, and I've read them all. So yes, I'm into Ken Wilber. He's actually not the origin of Wake Up, Grow Up, Show Up. My colleague, Dustin DePerna. So actually Ken borrowed it. I don't know that he totally owns it, but I will. So Dustin DePerna is a young scholar out of Harvard, and his version was Wake Up, Grow Up, Clean Up, Show Up. But then when he describes it differently. The show up part isn't really so much around soul level purpose. But anyway, I love his work, and I borrowed from him. And so I love Dustin DePerna's work. And yes, Ken is an amazing integral philosopher. We all sort of stand on his shoulders in many ways. I've come to part from him in many ways, just personality-wise and a few other ways, philosophically, but I owe a great debt to him, great debt. So I would say that my purpose work is deeply integrally informed, aqua informed, evolutionarily informed, and a number of other things. So yeah, I'm glad you brought that up. Yeah. All right. Anna, Danielle. Oh, I haven't been. Well, if you haven't gone yet, Anna, then Danielle, and then Lali Dana from Santa Barbara.
Hi, this is Anna in Idaho.
Hi.
So early in life, in 20s, I, like so many people, set out to find a purposeful life. And I too was a ski racer of great ambition and moderate success. So I headed out of high school to go skiing, and I became a ski bum. And I made a living ski instructing, thinking, this is good. I'm taking my passion, something that's really important to me, and I'm turning it into a life. And I did that for about 4 ski seasons on 4 different continents, and just discovered that this, ski instructing is a job. And then it was airplanes was my next passion. So I thought, great, I'll be a pilot. So I did. Went to all the trouble to be a pilot, and then I discovered, this is not that much fun. It's really a job. And then I went looking for that middle-class comfort, so I became an aeronautical engineer. And at this point in life, I'm thinking, this is not that much fun. That I'm definitely what you're describing, the sort of the default. So my question is that, what did I miss? I sure tried. I took my passions, my burning passions, and turned them into a life centered around it. And still, I didn't really get any traction, and none of it really stuck.
Yeah. Well, so of course, I don't know. I mean, let me just admit, right off the bat, I don't know the answer, but I will offer a speculation. So a couple of things. First, the thing that really takes attraction isn't just something that you feel unbelievably attracted to and joyful doing. It also has to be something that the world truly is hungering for. So the way I think of it is, if I won the lottery, another thought experiment, I win $100 million. I don't have to worry about groceries and my mortgage anymore, like never. What will I do? So, I don't play the lottery, but I've asked that question. It's a very good question. And so I've come up with this. I love what I do. It's not just a job. I'm not just doing it for the money. It is a survival dance. It is what pays my bills, but it's what I absolutely love doing. That said, I might, for a period of, I'll say 6 months, go wild for passions that don't serve others, but that are nourishing to me. I would like to be a ski bum for a few months. I think that would be really fun. Will it serve anybody? No, but it doesn't have to. There's lots of things I do that don't serve others. That's not selfish. That's good self-care. I'm glad you took some time to do that. And I may, in this lifetime, we'll see if it works out, I may spend some time being a ski bum. That would be lovely. But I don't think it would last long in my case. If I went on a 6-month trip, right, and I was skiing, but I was also just staying in 5-star hotels, and I wouldn't just drink wine, I'd drink good wine, finally. I would enjoy it. I mean, I'm nearly certain I would enjoy it, but I'm also nearly certain that after 6 months of traveling the world and doing that, I'd have my fill. I don't think I'm the type of person who could endlessly just go for the happiness, the happiness that comes from skiing and good wine and all of that. So I think traction comes from not just finding what brings you alive, but finding the place where what brings you alive and the world hunger meets. That is distinct. That I think is different. Does that help a little bit?
Well, it actually helps very much. You pretty much answered my question right there.
Oh.
May I have the follow-up question?
Yeah.
So for what you said, it has to be my gladness and the world's future. And I think I focused on the first part of that statement and I missed out on the second. And that's pretty much what you just said.
Yeah.
But here's the crux though. I'm not sure the world, or this, my deep, deep feeling is that I'm not sure the world needs me for anything. And that's why I missed that part of the statement.
Well, respectfully and warmly and gently, I absolutely disagree with you. I could be wrong, of course. So, but I think that's, we are, all of you are 14.72 billion years old. It took that long for the universe. You're just made of, all the stuff that was there in the Big Bang. And I find it nearly inconceivable that a flower, that the word not needed really makes sense. I get that it's possible to, as a thought experiment, put that out there and go, well, if I die, who cares? And in one way, I think, yeah, I'm not that important. No one, most people don't know me. But I actually don't think you're a mistake or a casual creative expression of the universe. I don't find the universe casual. I think when you go from nothing to something, that is the least casual thing I've ever seen. Second Big Bang, going from something, materiality, to life. I don't know how that worked, but that is not a casual thing. Third Big Bang, we went from life to self-aware, self-reflective life. So for what it's worth, I hardly know you and you hardly know me. I do not believe that contention that the world doesn't need you. I see a world that is in need of all hands on deck. I see a world that, frankly, the 2020s is about the most special time to have ever been alive, because if we don't get it straight in the next decade, there is a distinct possibility that we will have runaway global warming, which will sizzle everybody and everything. So I think you are needed. And I think you're important. And I think it's baked into the universe. It's not because oh, Anna, you are the most important person. It's because you're a human being and that is a privilege and it's running out, we're not 20, you and I. There's a handful of decades if we're lucky, and then it's gone. So I would ask you to consider that may be an error, that idea that you're not needed.
Well, I won't just consider it. I'm already agreeing with you.
Oh, well, okay. That was good.
And it just makes sense. But apparently this is a form of the resistance you were talking about.
Yes, absolutely. Who am I to be important, right? Because it feels like that's arrogance. It's the ego, right? If I say, I, Jonathan Gustam, am important, my ego just goes, just like, But the personality of Jonathan isn't important. He comes, he goes. But there is something in a life that can make the human experience and the experience of the more than human better. So that, I don't think that's nothing. I think love is real, and I think it's important, and I think we can each find a way of loving that really impacts life. So that's the cosmology I live by, that I experience as true, and that guides my days. So I hope it's some use to you. And I do want to make sure I get to some other questions. So thank you, Anna. Yeah. I keep botching this name. Lalila, Dana, and then Chuck.
Oh, I think I was next.
Okay, go for it.
A couple times. Sorry.
No worries.
So hi, thank you. I'm Danielle. I guess it says that on there. Okay, so everything you resonate with me I resonate with you so much in everything that you're saying. And even when you ask that, I'm framing this from a personal perspective, hoping people relate to it, because I just don't know how else to ask my question. But so when you were talking about, what the fear was, like, I think I'm finally at my purpose. Now I'm like trying to define it. So I've just been on such a serious path for so long, and the universe has I'm here, I'm in it. So your program starting in September, I'm like, no, I need it now. So I'm curious, what, I guess it's specific about your program, but what do you recommend, because I'm ready this minute. I want to set up today and start. September seems so far away, because right now I'm just trying to find that, how to define it,
Yeah, no, I'm glad you asked that. So, so about the program, people who sign up early receive optional bonus meetings, 1 a month, because just what you're saying, you don't really kind of want to wait it's I should stop being an alcoholic, but I'll start it in September. No, you kind of need to and want to get on with it. So, and I've found, and it's been reported to me, that the people who just through, I guess, luck or, well, through the mystery, signed up early, had these warm-up calls, that they had a better experience. They felt warmed up for the September program. So you don't have to wait. I'll be sending an email to everybody offering the program and an interview with me. I interview everybody. It's not just come. I need to make sure people are psychospiritually ready, because there's some, what would be the word? If you were in active psychosis, if you had untreated, major depressive disorder, if you were addicted to drugs, there's a number of things I'd be like, you know what? I need to protect the group, and I need to protect you. So anyway, point is, we do the interview. Then there's the second interview. The second interview is with Soul. After I interview you, and if I say, yep, I'd love to have you, then I say, please go out on a soul walk. Before you drop $1 into PGI, go on a soul walk and do a little mini soul encounter technique. Go out and ask the question on the land, or if you can't get on the land, look out the window because it's a pandemic, and ask Soul, is it purposeful for me to take this program? And if you get a yes, you get a yes from me and you get a yes from Soul, then you sign up, and the bonus meetings start. Actually, I don't have the date on my fingertips, but they start soon. So you don't have to wait. That's the short answer.
Thank you. And do you do a payment, just practical question, payment plan for the full 12 100 payment, or?
Generally not, but if you really need it, I can do that. The way it works is it's a $250 deposit right away. It's fully refundable. I can't remember if it's 60 or 90 days. So if you did like one of the bonus calls and you're like, you know what, actually I've changed my mind, then there's no penalty. And then the rest is due, I think, again, 60 or 90 days. But if you need to break it up and do a couple of payments, we might be able to work something out.
Okay. Yeah, just at this time, being unemployed. But thank you.
Totally. Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I know. I've tried to keep the the price quite low. $1,200 for 12 meetings and the whole Purpose Guides library and the I thought about raising it because I thought maybe it's a little underpriced, but I decided not to. So that's what happened. Yeah. All right. Actually, why don't I take one more question about the program, and then we'll have the after party for anyone who wants to stay. I want to honor the commitment. In fact, if you need to go now, again, just enjoy the conversation and the exploration with you. As there is, you can just unmute yourself if you have. Maybe I'll take one or two more questions about the program, and then come back to sort of personal questions if you have one. Anyone else have a question about the program?
Yes, this is Chuck. I have one.
Yeah.
You mentioned about missing. What happens if it's just once
That's fine.
throughout the time? Yeah, because I
of
have
course.
a seminar that I have to go to that's in a place where there's no cell service.
Yeah, no. So I appreciate you bringing that up because I made it sound too locked down. You need to make an absolute commitment to attend every session. You can't just watch the recordings and audit it. You've actually got to do the work. And that, it helps you with your commitment and accountability. And it also makes the entire cohort buzz with, we were really sharing intense, psychoactive practices. That said, life happens. So if there is a wedding or you're ill or you're offline or whatever, everything is recorded. So if you miss one, even two, don't worry about it. In those cases, it's second best, but it will suffice. So yeah. I was just really wanting to hit this point because so many people. What? Just let me just finish this last thought. I just really wanted to make the point that a lot of teleseminars just want as many people as possible, and they're happy having auditors. And while that might be more financially lucrative for me, I'd rather work with a smaller group of people who are really like, let's have the fall be an intense journey into soul level purpose. So yeah. Okay, I cut somebody off. What were you saying? You're Mara, I can't hear you. You're breaking up. Try one more time.
I just wondered if you were going to get to the 8 elements.
Yes,
because
I will.
I've been interested in that, and I noticed.
And I'll send them to you too.
Okay, that'd be great.
Yeah, I think I'm feeling now, instead of lecturing more about the elements, I want to take a few more questions because it's the opportunity to connect with people. But I will before we go.
Hey, Jonathan.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah, Stephen.
Stefan.
Stefan, thank you for correcting me. I would rather say your name correctly.
It's all right. Quick question. Well, by the way, tomorrow, those 8 things are in the document that you sent out, so you can read that. Quick question for Bella and I. Bella was on this call. Question for us as a couple: if we come to do this with you in the fall, which sounds like we'd love to do, can we be in separate groups so that we really have that space of the small groups? I think it's important, and I know you know that.
Yeah, not only can you be in separate groups, I mean, I love my wife and yes. But it's these sorts of explorations. It's good to be in a different. I'm going to mute everybody because some people are. Let me do that. Yeah, please keep yourself muted until you're talking. So
right.
Yeah, exactly. So done.
Cool.
Great.
I guess is that the only. Yep. For now, that's great. Probably see you in the fall. Awesome.
Oh, wonderful.
Thanks
wonderful.
for today. Beautiful.
Oh, you're welcome.
Jonathan, this
yes,
is
please.
Lynn. Thank you. Will, in the resistance technology or section, will you talk about how to deal with other people's resistances to your pursuit for
Yeah.
your purpose,
This
and
is
what
a-
it might mean to your relationship, and what they expect from you
Yeah.
might change.
This is huge. So
Yeah.
I'll just like speak on it for a moment rather than just say yes.
Okay.
How to say this in 1 minute? Here, I'm going to mute you because we're having some. I'm going to mute everyone again. Just okay. People, our people love us. I mean, they just do. But they also are personalities that need something. And one of the things they need is a stable friend who doesn't change too much. Now, that's not everyone. You may have a very mature friend who honors and just loves watching you unfold in various ways, even if it brings them away from them. But that's the rub, is that sometimes when you discover and embody more and more your authentic being, your indigenous self, they might not be able to follow. They may not feel like lighted up by what it is that you are evolving into an embodiment. And so how to deal with that? Well, number one, you don't necessarily want to share your innermost with everybody. So I use the word Uncle Fred. That's just a little thing. So Uncle Fred likes you, loves you, but is not really interested in your development and doesn't really want to hear anything that's sort of strange and weird. And he's not a bad guy. And if he's a bad guy, then you're probably not saying anything to him. So for that person, he's just like, just there are some things that are precious and private. That said, your soul level purpose is not primarily private. It is primarily a public event because it involves a purpose beyond self that is about giving your love and demonstrating your love into the world. So when you do that, what happens when there's pushback? Well, the sad truth is, one is sometimes relationships will fall away. And this takes a time to kind of feel into. If Lynn 2.0, 3.0, 4.0 grows into something and is authentic and real, and some people don't like it, those friendships can drop. You don't have to push them away, I mean, unless that's what you want to do, but naturally, as you become more and more you will attract more people who resonate with who you are today, and some people will fall by the wayside. Others will be able to be preserved. I still have a friend from high school who's really no interest in my work, and he listens or whatever, but he's open. He blesses my work, but he's not interested in it. So I've been able to preserve an old dear friendship, even though we've moved very far apart. And so there's a variety of different responses we'll get, and a variety of different responses that will meet to that response. So I'll go over all those, but that's just like a little drop of that, because it's not necessarily true that even though people say, I want you to grow and be happy, if growing and being happier means awakening to this soul level purpose and living it, what if it threatens them? And that's understandable. What if my wife decides to become, I don't know, a fundamentalist, Orthodox, Muslim, something? Well, I'll try it out. I have no interest in that. I just don't. I have no interest in fundamentalist anything. But I'm just like, really? So you're okay? Well, let's try it out, and I'll be honest with you. This might not work out for me. The person I married and the person you've become are different. So let's live with it and see. And we may need to split, especially if you absolutely have to convert me. That's not going to work out. Yeah. Thank you. Any last questions?
I've got one, Jonathan.
Please. Yeah.
So Bill Plotkin is one of my absolute favorite teachers, and I so love and resonate with nature being a mirror for soul. And so I'm curious about your program and if there is any involvement with communing in nature as part of soul discovery.
Yeah. So nature-based soul encounter, technologies are amongst the most effective. I could wax on poetic about that. I actually want to, but I won't because it'll take too much time. But you're nodding and smiling. So the culmination, so I introduce all sorts of different, using his language, soul encounter techniques or technologies. And we culminate in a weekend soul quest. It's a distilled version. It's a distilled version of the Vision Quest or Vision Fast ceremony, wherever people are in the world. So it's different, right? I mean, if you can make it to a Bill Plotkin Vision Quest somewhere in the United States when they reopen after the pandemic, great. I highly recommend doing the full thing. He sometimes makes fun of me. We're friends. He makes fun of me and goes, well, you do the, what did he call it? The drive-through version. But then he also says, I really respect what you're doing because you're working with people over a long period of time. They're not just convening and then dispersing. So there's pros and cons. So the short answer is, yes, I want people to be in nature doing these things. Can you do some of these techniques on a couch? Yes. Would it be better to do it outside of the confines of the homeostasis and man and woman-made, human-made context? Absolutely. Because as you know from working with Bill or reading his books, opening up this organ of perception, it's not thinking. When you go outside and you're really in wild nature, you begin to realize, and I lead people who don't realize this, I encourage people through teaching to feel that wild nature is coextensive with your very self. Ultimately, you are coextensive with it, but as a concession for most people, that's like too much. So I start off with, and then you can listen, not just with your pores and your whole body, but you listen as if the trees and the wingeds and the ground and that stump is coextensive with you. And that listening enables you to actually penetrate into deeper levels. So anyway, that's a longer answer that I meant. So yes. Yeah, Bill Plotkin. So he has a book called Soulcraft. He has several books, but the one I recommend you start with for anyone, whether you take my course or not, it's required reading for my thing. So it's that good. It's one of the seminal books written on, I call it purpose discovery. He does not. We do part in some ways, for sure. We like to argue with each other, but it's a seminal book. Yeah, Nature and the Human Soul is awesome. I've read it several times. It's this it'll hurt your brain because it's just it's like 8 books in one. But I love it. We're actually talking about it right now in Purpose Guides training, and Bill Plotkin himself is coming to teach this Wednesday. So I have everybody, study him thoroughly, who is training to be a guide, and then I have him come to give a master class, and then his teacher just came. One of his teachers was Meredith Little and Stephen Foster, who's passed. And so she's come. So I'm always attempting to get multiple perspectives on this craft of purpose guiding. So thanks, Emily.
So Jonathan?
Yeah.
This is Lynn.
Hi, Lynn.
Hi. So my experience with your question was that for me, it would be relief because I feel like I lived a life of multiple purposes, but not soul level my ethical core has always been strong and it has always been challenged in ways, but there hasn't been what the world needs piece connecting me. And so is being at a place where arriving at one's purpose, I mean, when you asked the question, it was like, it would be such a relief to then have something to move on and unfold into. And I'm single, so I don't have any problems with, at this particular time. And I'm not concerned about the worldly goods and all of that. And matter of fact, a lot of what my life has experienced the broadness of living meagerly and then living very well.
Yeah.
So is that a question I've formulated, or am I just?
No. Do you want to just condense it into one sentence, if you care to?
Is it unusual to be at a place where my reaction was it'd be a relief to me that
completely. Yeah. So I love giving alternate names. I never share them, but they're in my head. right? So instead, purpose discovery program is a pretty good description of, it's the best description actually that I can come up with for the course, but it's also listening 101 to 901. It's also self-awareness 101 to 901, because really, whatever it is that we discover that's authentic and indigenous to us, we can call it purpose, and you can call it by other names. It's to know yourself, right? Like it was written on the, on the Parthenon or the Delphi Oracle, I can't remember. It's like, know thyself. I don't know if it was Socrates or somebody else who said it. That there is a joy, an awakening, and a relief. Because we talk about like, well, I was born, but no one gave me the manual of being a human being. I never got one. Some people say, I was born Jewish, so they were like, here's the Torah. Well, I read it, and I was like, no. And other people, yeah, it worked for them, or the Bible, or the Quran, or whatever it may be. So then I actually believe I'd rather have experience than a book that was written way before I was born. And so there's a self-authenticating knowledge. When you touch, and it's a relief, like, who am I? What do I want? What do I really want? Because we try all sorts of things that we don't really want. We think we want it. I like really good high fidelity, and I bought some nice stereo equipment, and I don't regret it because it does sound good. But let me be honest, it's just, and like everything, you can buy the next level on the next level, and it goes on till the what do you call it, what's that car called? The Rolls Royce of, the stereo that Jeff Bezos has. It doesn't work. It's not who I really am. So what the awareness of what I am is the thing that can really set me free and give me deep joy. So yeah, I do find it a relief. The more and more I'm aware of myself. And there's also just a what's the word? Not self-authenticating. There's a self-substantiation in self-awareness. There's a joy in becoming to know you. There's a joy in getting to know a friend or a partner. And when we get to know, I have an 11-year-old. I'm like, love getting to know him. I don't know who he is. He's just, he's this person. And I'm like, who are you? And, he says, oh, I'm a spaz, Dad. I'm a hyper spaz. I'm like, okay. And sometimes it's annoying when he's bouncing off the walls, because he's here 7 days a week now, not in schools. But it's like, who are you? And he knows who he is. And to the degree that I can accept that. So yeah, that I would just say that it's the relief of all reliefs to know who you are and to be who you are. Not everyone will like it 24/7, but like, what else are you going to do with your life? Be somebody else? Be a fraction of you? Well, I think a lot of people do that, but hence we've got a lot of addiction and obesity and this and this and this and this and this, and it's harming us, and it's killing the planet. So there's some reason to believe that this work is actually activism. It's actually how I feel about it.
I agree.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I mean, since we're just going deeper and deeper into the conversation, I actually feel that I'm an activist. There's, Greenpeace activists, for instance, who are classical activists. They look like they're doing activism because they're, in the way of whale hunting and so forth. I actually think, using Bill Plotkin's language, well, actually, he didn't invent change agents, but agents of cultural renaissance is the way he put it. Change agents, evolutionary change agents. We need to evolve or we die. We've overshot on the planet. We know from every other species that when a species becomes very successful and then too successful, if you've got too many, mountain lions, they decimate the population of deer, and then there's a massive die-out. So you can't become overly successful in that sense. Well, our success in multiplying is based on, I'll only do 30 more seconds to this, I promise, is based on fossil fuels. Fossil fuels is what runs our industrial agricultural situation. And that it's sustaining us for the moment, well, not everybody, but a lot of people, billions of people, that's going to run out. You can't just endlessly pour fertilizer, pesticides, and herbicides on the earth and have fossil fuels that are raising the climate and continue this. It's unsustainable. Unsustainable. So one of the forms of activism, I think, is waking up, growing up, and showing up. These people do less damage and actually help heal and repair the world. Tikkun olam, right? Heal and repair the world. So I actually think of Purpose Guides Institute as an activist organization, though I don't put that front and center. Well, it is on the website, actually, so I take that back. But anyway, the entry point to this activism is wake up to your own power, self-knowledge and awareness, and act from that place. You're needed. The Titanic's going down. The real Titanic went down in 2 hours and 30 minutes. Well, this is slower, but some people say that rapid climate change could be coming any moment. I'm not a climatologist, but if that's true, we better wake up quickly and engage the power that we've been given. Yeah, thanks.
Thank you. Jonathan, I have a question. Are we still asking questions about the program?
Anything you'd like at this point. Yeah, we're off the clock. It's the after party.
Okay. So I'll just speak from my personal experience. Growing up, I always had a really strong sense of purpose and calling, and I always moved through it and felt very guided and supported. And but in February, I had an accident. I had carbon monoxide poisoning in my home, and I fell unconscious. And then when I woke up from it, I feel totally lost, totally unguided, totally without purpose, without knowing which path to move forward. I'm unemployed from the COVID crisis, so money is dwindling, and at its end, I feel depressed. And yeah, I'm just in this constant state of lostness and sadness and grief, and I just don't know. I don't know how to find my way, and I guess my question about the purpose and stuff is how do I rediscover my path and my way, and will I, and do I have to be survivalist and try to just make it out there in the world, and in the meantime when I feel so emotionally disconnected.
Yeah. Oh, okay. Well, first of all, just putting so-called spirituality aside for a moment, human to human, you've gone through so very, very much. I don't know what it would be like to pass out from carbon monoxide poisoning and then wake up disoriented and confused. It can damage one, physically. Obviously, it can kill you if you're exposed to it too much. But just speaking psychologically, there's possibility of trauma. But even if it doesn't rise to the level of a PTSD, how disorienting, how destabilizing such an event can be. So there's an opportunity there, but I don't want to rush. I just want to linger for one more moment and just say, you've been thrown curveballs. We've all been thrown curveballs. I mean, COVID is, it's wow. It's really affecting us. It's affecting me. So, and on top of that, you've lost your job and your finances are dwindling. So I have enough savings. Well, actually, I'm working, so it's not even dipping into savings. That's really destabilizing. So for anyone who's experiencing this, that's just huge. Where will I get the money to pay the rent and buy the groceries? So just my heart goes out to you. So full stop. I just want to let that hang in silence for a moment. If we were sitting for tea, I wouldn't move to this next part quickly because I just want to receive, your experience and honor it. But since it was said in the form of a question, and we are here in this Zoom room, I would say a couple of things. One is that being lost is actually an incredible, can feel like just a painful situation, but it's also an opportunity. When things befall us that we really don't like, and it can just be like, our partner breaks up with us. That could be huge. We were going along thinking that we were coupled. Now we're not. We were going along thinking we're healthy. Now I have a diagnosis. We're going along thinking things are good. Now COVID. Now I've lost my job. So this ego destabilization can actually be a great boon, because it begins to ask these questions. Well, what do I do? How do I meet life? So I want to first say and honor the fact that the survival dance, a la Harley Swiftier, survival dance, sacred dance. I mean, you're going to need to, before the money runs out, find some way of having a minimum, level of financial security. I mean, you'll get hungry and homeless without it. So that's just top of mind. It's just top of mind. If I were just using the Titanic, if I was on the Titanic, I wouldn't do purpose guiding. I would get me and my family to a lifeboat. So you do need to attend to that. It doesn't mean you have to attend to that and exclude a deeper inquiry, but at some point that will need to be attended to. And it's a hard one. It's the big koan for all of us. How do I live? Simultaneously, there's the deeper question above just the maintenance, of my physical body. Is there a dance in life that's deeper than survival? And I think the answer is yes. It's your sacred dance. And that is very orienting, even in lean times as well. So I would say if you're lost, make friends with being lost. Lost is not as bad as it sounds. I mean, it is, and it's not. Now, that's easy for me to say, because in this moment, I'm either not lost or I'm not experiencing the lostness that I am. And so I get that it's an easy thing for me to say. That said, make friends with being lost. It's gotten a bad press in be found and do it quick and do it in 2 weeks of your money back. I want to suggest that instead of resisting it, and it's okay if you resist it some, because who wouldn't, but you actually let it completely take you. Be thoroughly saturated and lost. When I've sat on these things called a vision quest, you go out and you fast and pray for 4 days, no food, uncomfortable, lonely, whatever the experience is. I always start off lost. My first thought is, why the hell am I doing this again? This is tedious. This is boring. This sucks. I don't like it. What was I thinking? I paid money to be part of this group. I mean, this is just insanity. And then I'm like, what? I'm even lost to what I'm even doing. And it's quite painful. But I stay with it and it changes. So that's my final thought. Stay with lostness and make friends with it. By that, I mean, meet it. Like really ask it. Do you have something to teach me? So maybe I'll just see if that was helpful at all, Anna.
Yeah, I guess for me, it feels wrong, it just feels like, for example, like looking at the job market, just like nothing like relates, like I can't connect with anything. And the lostness, it just brings, like, each day I find myself, like crying or yelling whilst running in a forest, because I'm just so frustrated by not knowing where to go and where to focus my attention. And because purpose has always driven me, I always felt such a strong call to be of service, and all my projects for, like, prior as an entrepreneur, it was always about that. And now I don't resonate. So yeah, that's kind of my kind of trauma with this, is that, like, jacket into some sort of job that doesn't that I don't resonate with.
So one last thought, and then I do want to make sure I can answer a few more or respond to a few more questions. So the other day, an old student of mine from, I don't know, 8 years ago, she actually came to my group when she was 19, like the most precocious of the students. It's very rare a teenager can join the group because they're just usually not ready. And she was a college student, and she came to realize that she had to dance. She just had to dance. Go to New York and try to be a dancer. Well, the father in me, this person could be my kid, is like, oh no, that's making it as a dancer in New York, 0.0001. But the purpose guide in me said, do it. I mean, she wasn't asking for my permission, but so we worked, and she found her voice. She found her authentic dance. She just looked me up, and we just reconvened. And I said, well, please, a report from the front line, what happened? And what she reported is I couldn't believe, I'm going to actually interview her and put her on a podcast thing. She is alive with soul, like gangbusters. I mean, she's always been a precocious person. Did she make it in terms of livelihood? No. I said, how do you, because you have to be the top to make it, an Alvin Ailey or whatever the dance thing. She says, I tutor to make enough money to supplement, because she does get gigs as a dancer. She's very, very good. She said, but it's not enough in New York. She said, so she has a tutoring business. And she likes it. She says, I like teaching, actually. And as she was describing it, I'm like, I could see it, like, wow, you are a good teacher. So I share that story with this intention that you can live your life's purpose and not immediately become so successful that it is your day-to-day work, all of it is earning money. It's just not the case. That said, she is an example of somebody who is absolutely happy with the way she went. She's actually including acting in it now. She's just like, I don't want to be limited by dance. I'm a performing artist. She sent me these videos, and I was like, you are. And so I get that some things won't necessarily feel soul nourishing just, initially. You may end up taking jobs that just you don't like. But I think you will be able to find survival dance jobs that become closer and closer with your soul level purpose, that are nourishing. And eventually, if you come into that self-awareness, if you stay with that inquiry, what is that place where my deep gladness and the world's hunger meets, and you practice that, you will actually have your sacred dance and your survival dance be the same thing. I can't guarantee that. I mean, I'd be a liar, but I've seen that again and again, like with that person. So I have more to say and more questions to ask you, but I need to make space for other people. Thank you, Anna.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I hate to interrupt. I have to leave, and since I'm co-host,
yes.
wanted to
thank you
to let you know I enjoyed this, but I do want to make a comment that I so appreciate this discussion, because non-dual awakening and aligning with your purpose are not two things. And so I really appreciate the conversation around this.
Yeah.
So thank you so much.
Thank you for helping me.
Sure.
I needed help, and you just stepped right in and offered your service. So there it was. Yeah.
You got it.
Much appreciation.
Thank you so much.
Okay. I'm going to actually stop the recording. I'll stay on for anyone else who wants to just hang for another 10 minutes. But if you are listening to the recording, thank you for listening. And if you feel inclined, well, here's my pitch. Whether you take the program or not, do stay with the question of what your place is in this life. It's a worthy question, whether you engage it with me and in community or not. So give it attention, feed it, water it. If it serves you to do it with a guide and to do it with a community, then there's in the email, it says, what to do, which is to reach out for an interview. So thank you for listening. live or in the recording, and be well.